There's no evidence of an ancient scroll. In fact, it's, I wish I could remember the fella's name. If I remember it, I'll share it with you. But he had his own YouTube channel, and this was even before the HBO documentary. And he was talking about how Yogi Bhajan just made stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would just make stuff up and then teach it, and then people would do it. And it's just all predicated on a lie.
Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast, where we talk about everything body, mind, and spirit, health, and wellness. No subject is taboo here, and we have fun peeling back all the layers. Let's do this. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode. You know where, Wellness Amazon podcast. Glad you found your way here. And today again with a guest you probably know by now, but just in case this is the first time you ever listen to anything on this podcast, it's Brian Friedman. Welcome to the show. He is the co-owner and, co-inventor kind of Redefined Yoga, which is, you guys have been around for such a long time and now you're online and you invented functional yoga instruction. And I'm going to link all the other shows that you've had with me in the show notes. We talked about breath, qigong, and functional yoga, actually, which that one might be the most important one to link for today to give a little bit of background on yoga is not yoga. And so today we're going to talk about, I'm not even sure what to call it, but maybe like the truth of yoga and how yoga got created and how it got to be what it is today. The reason, and this is very important, the reason I don't have a lot of notes on this, and Brian is going to be our main driver of the show today, is it's very hard to Google. So when you Google these things or any other search machine, you will get the what we all think yoga is, and nothing else. It's like, oh yeah, all these gurus from India, and that's it, right? That's all you find. And before we even dive deep into this is not an episode to shame anyone or anything. If this is what you do, if this is going to rattle your brain and rattle your stars and whatnot, just take a deep breath, keep an open mind. This is not going to take it away from whatever routine you do. So yeah, Brian, welcome to the show once again. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Melina. And thank you for having me again. It's always a fun experience to chat about this stuff. And I think it's important. It's kind of like what you said a second ago. It's not to shame anyone or to, I don't know, ruffle feathers per se. But for me, my journey has always been getting to the truth or getting as close to the truth as possible. And sometimes, that's not super comfortable, but you come out the other end and you just have more knowledge. And then it's up to you now to do with that knowledge whatever you will, instead of just taking things at face value, I suppose, which is what happened to me in the world of yoga. Now, I'll do my best to explain. I guess before we dive in, do you have any specific questions for me, or do you want me to just kind of blather on and you'll interrupt me as we go?
I don't have questions. I just wanted to maybe mention how yoga was introduced to me, because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of listeners in the same boat. Again, I'm from Germany. I grew up in Germany. So in Germany, this whole yoga craze came way later than it came to the US. We're always a little bit behind with those things. And just as we just mentioned, first yoga teacher ever, she learned in India. She traveled to India to learn with all these gurus for years, months, I don't know, for a long time. And of course, I was like in awe, right? Wow, that's so cool. And wasn't anything bad. And then my boyfriend at the time was like, how did you like this? I'm like, oh yeah, it was really cool. So he gifts me a book about yoga. I came about to page 10 and I thought, ooh, I don't think that's for me. because this whole book was about that yoga isn't just exercise. Yoga is a way of life, and you have to be, I'm not kidding you. They said in the book, you have to be vegan because one of the laws of yoga, there was a Sanskrit word, please don't ask me what they said, was you cannot harm any other life on earth, and you have to have this spiritual cleansing, and you have to have this routine and all of that stuff. And I thought, oh, uh, th- it's a little much,
Yeah.
And then when this whole craze started to really come, I thought, well, all these other people are doing yoga, so I can do yoga, and they're not vegan, so I can do yoga. And then, long and behold, I found you, functional yoga. Melina lived happily ever after, right? But I know that you also have a very intense journey on how you got to the point where you thought, wait a minute.
Right.
So it's a little fishy here.
Yeah,
Okay.
something ain't quite right. And,
So, yep.
yeah, it happened by accident too, so I'll do my best to explain. And maybe we'll just kinda go backwards at first and just
Mhm.
what even does yoga mean? Did I phrase that correctly? What does yoga mean in the first place? So now, these days, 21st century, we just say yoga, and it's just synonymous with stretching, some form of a choreographed aerobics routine in a hot room, and you stretch, and you're
Mhm.
doing yoga. That's kind of what it means these days now. We've got yoga at the YMCA, we've got yoga on yogurt commercials, we've got yoga appearing in episodes of Desperate Housewives. You watch almost any Netflix series and someone's going to the yoga studio or they got their yoga mat. So now it's just kind of normal everyday thing, and it's fine. It's nice to have a certain level of acceptance. But yoga originally was really just a way to acquire a deep sense of meditation. And your audience, they may know this a little better than I, or maybe things have changed a little, but it used to be that yoga meant union, union of the mind and the body. And the idea was that this union once the mind and body have, I guess, solidified or they've come together, it helps to reduce all of the anxiety and the noise in our brains. And there's science that backs it up. We talked about it in one of our episodes. The right and the left hemisphere, they have different functions. And so if you can imagine, these days you go to a restaurant, the logical side of your brain wants the salad, but the emotional side of your brain wants the deluxe nachos with
Mhm.
extra cheese. And so there's always this sort of dichotomous relationship in our head. Well, however many thousands of years ago, there were some people in India that wanted to slow that down, stop it, and even reverse it so they could just have a nice, calm life without anxiety. And that was called yoga. You're trying to achieve that union. And there were different ways to achieve yoga. It wasn't stretching. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get that to that's coming up. Yoga could be achieved by prayer, acts of service. So there's like bhakti yoga, karma yoga, raja yoga, hatha yoga. That's what we know these days. Hatha yoga is the physical act of doing things physically and purifying the body, and that's what brings us uh, that sense of calmness and tranquility and equanimity. Yoga through physical activities, and I don't remember all of them. Karma, bhakti, hatha, raja. I know there's probably others. So it wasn't super clear a few thousand years ago when you said I do yoga.
Mhm.
You may have been asked, well, which one? Do you meditate? Do you do acts of service? Or do you do the physical things? So back in those days, physical things would have meant just like constant cleansing, vomiting, uh, using gauze and cleaning out your nasal passages, starving yourself, renouncing things. That's what yoga was like back in the day. You were renounce things. You were trying to burn off your karma, if you believe in that or not. You try to burn off
Mhm.
your karma, but at the same time, you're trying to not accrue karma.
Hmm.
So the original yogis, they were renunciates. They lived in the woods. They may or may not have been nude. They probably had dreadlocks, ash in their hair, and things like that because they renounced the world because they were trying to get into heaven by renouncing everything.
Mhm.
And so part of that process was to render the body useless. So they might walk around with their arm overhead like all day, trying to render their arm useless because then they can't use the arm to steal or to want or to grab. They might stand on one leg for just until complete exhaustion and then switch and stand on that leg until complete exhaustion because they're trying to burn off karma. So that's kind of what yoga looked like back in the day. So how on earth did we get from rejecting everything, living in the woods, vomiting, cleaning out our nasal passages with gauze, starving ourselves, holding one arm over our head, even hanging upside down from a tree by a rope? How did we get from there to aerobics in a hot room and stretching? How?
Right. Yeah.
So that's a little bit about, I guess, what we're going to talk about today. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I'm glad that nobody is promoting those things in some brick and mortar building nowadays where it's like, you just
Well,
I'm
imagine
gonna
if you said, "Yeah, we've got a yoga studio," and you walk in and people are hanging upside down from a tree and binding their arms so they don't function anymore.
Mhm.
It's actually just like a little sidebar. Um, one of I don't know if David Williams was officially my teacher, but David Williams and I were friends. We used to play chess online, and if he came to town, I'd go to his workshops and things of that nature. David Williams was the first non-Indian non-Indian male to learn the entire ashtanga yoga, everything taught directly by Sri K. Patabi Joyce. So we'll get to all that too.
Mhm.
So David's got quite a pedigree, and he talked about when he went to yoga. When he went to yoga, we're going to edit this, right? I'm kidding. Leave it in. Leave it in. Blooper reel. He went to India
Mhm.
looking for yoga, and when he was looking around, and this was back in the 70s, he saw those rituals of like the stomach churning, vomiting, using gauze to clean out their nasal passages. And he said, I don't want to do that. If that's yoga, I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
But then he saw it may have been Manju Joyce. It was one of Patabi's sons demonstrating Ashtanga yoga. And this was where flow yoga comes from. And so he saw the physical asanas and stretching and stuff. And he said, okay, that's what I want to do. If that's yoga, that's what I want to do. So that's kind of where we're getting to. So just a little side note, even back in the 70s, when yoga was still kind of weird, um,
Mhm.
even in the 90s, yoga was still considered like kind of like a weird sex cult, and people didn't know if it was a religion and stuff like that. But I digress. So how did we get from vomiting to stretching? Here's where I guess my story comes in, and we'll try to tie everything together if that's all right.
Mhm.
We've mentioned it in previous podcasts. I broke my left arm when I was 30. And the short story is I rehabilitated my arm enough that I could get it to move, but I needed to improve its strength. My hand and my arm was mobile, but it was weak. So I chose yoga. I knew enough about yoga that it was body weight, that you could modify the exercises. I didn't even know they were called asana back then. So I knew yoga was probably a good entry level way to introduce weight into my hand and to make myself stronger. Now, back in the day, we have to count how many times do I say back in the day. Back in the day, we didn't have YouTube. I don't even know if YouTube existed in the like 2003, 2004. I don't know if it even existed. Do you know?
I think it did. I
Did
think
it?
but it wasn't it was between that and what was the other one? Was it Vice or something like this was right before that? So people didn't know about YouTube yet. It wasn't big.
It was in its infancy. It's not like today where you
Mhm.
can just type in uh, broken arm rehabilitation and you get
Right.
17 million videos with step by step tutorials. So I had to go to the bookstore. And we used to have this big bookstore. It was called Borders. So I walked into Borders, and pretty much anything that had the word yoga on it, I bought it. So I bought books, I bought DVDs, and I just sifted through everything trying to find a way that I could gradually put more and more weight on my arm. So like little baby cobra, cobra, king cobra, upward facing dog, and then eventually various planks and stuff like that. And it worked. I got strength back into my arm. I rehabilitated myself. Hooray. Now, as part of that process, I kept seeing one word that would pop up over and over again: ashtanga. And back in those days, I thought it was ashtanga. I didn't, I didn't know what that
Right.
was. And it turned out that it was a type of yoga. And from ashtanga is where power yoga comes from, flow yoga, vinyasa yoga, flow, vinyasa, like anything that's got the word flow, vinyasa, or power, it came from Ashtanga.
Mhm.
So I went and I found a studio in Orlando, Florida that taught Ashtanga yoga. And I loved it. It was great. The first studio I went to was a little teeny tiny room, maybe 8 by 10, no air conditioning. It had a little screen door in the back of the room. We didn't need to turn the heat up.
Mhm.
It was just like it was an oven in that little studio. And I really enjoyed the practice. I got into it. And so part of the process of getting into it was like learning about it. Where did it come from and what's the benefit of Ashtanga yoga? So kind of like what you may have experienced in your early introduction, I was getting all the stuff that this is a 5,000-year-old practice. It was an ancient script passed down from one teacher to their student. Their student took this ancient manuscript, turned it into a yoga practice. So we to get the benefit of the yoga practice, you have to follow these steps because it was written in this manuscript. And if you don't abide by what was written in this ancient text, you get no benefits. But if you do follow it and you do follow the rules, the benefits include, but are not limited to, everything goes away. No sickness, because you first level of Ashtanga yoga, you cleanse your body and your muscles, so you're impervious to illness. Then the second level of Ashtanga yoga, you clean your nervous system, so you're impervious to stuff like that. And, you know, one of my eyebrows went up when I heard all this stuff. I'm like, well, all right, but let's try,
Mhm.
you know, let's see, like, what happens. Let me do the practice and maybe I become impervious to everything and I'll never get sick and I'll never die.
Right.
Okay. So I start doing the practice and I'm getting into it, and not to be braggadocious, but I'm good. I get really advanced.
Mhm.
I'm Now I'm integrating handstands into my practice, and I'm levitating and I'm jumping back and I'm demonstrating for teachers, and people come and do workshops and they have me demonstrate the jump backs, and I'm doing all the stuff. But two things are happening at the same time, maybe three things. One is my body is falling to apart. My shoulders are killing me. My low back is killing me. My knees are killing me. So, how is it that this thing that's supposed to help me
Mhm.
is not helping me? I'm supposed to become more and more resilient and harder to kill, but I'm actually getting weaker and more vulnerable. Two, I start to learn that what kind of language can we use on this podcast? Do you bleep it out or do we leave it?
It's funny because YouTube is more forgiving than Spotify, so but you go ahead, you speak as normal, and then later I don't bleep it, it's just mute it.
A lot of it was just horse hockey, we'll put it that
Mm,
way. And I discovered that by accident because there was a book called, see, this is where I have to check my notes. Bear with me for 1 second. I want to see if I can find it. Back in the day, there was a book called something like, here it is, Yoga Tradition of the Mysore Palace.
okay.
Yoga Tradition of the Mysore Palace. Now, Mysore is the part of southern India where ashtanga yoga was born, and we'll get to that. And when I read this book, it just basically explained that ashtanga yoga probably came from gymnastics conditioning, Indian wrestling conditioning, and there's a third that's escaping me right now. So when I heard that, I thought, wait, hold on. I thought yoga was like a 5,000-year-old thing, and these
Right.
positions, I thought triangle pose was like 5,000 years old. Triangle pose is about 100 years old, and it
Eh,
probably comes from European calisthenics, side bending. So I read that and I thought, whoa, hold on, wait, hold on. So here's the scoop on that. Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga comes from a guy named Sri K. Patabi Jois.
Mhm,
Sri K. Patabi Jois is dead. He died a little while ago. Sri K. Patabi Jois' teacher was T. Krishnamacharya.
mhm.
Now, T. Krishnamacharya is often cited as the godfather or the creator of modern hatha yoga, yoga the way we do it now.
Mhm.
So the question earlier was, how did we get from vomiting and starving ourselves to stretching in hot rooms? T. Krishnamacharya was that bridge. He
Mhm.
was the bridge from that chasm. So T. Krishnamacharya was an avid yoga student. He was very passionate about yoga, and he was very known and renowned around India. And at some point in his career, a king, I don't know, is it Maharaja? Is that an Indian king? Forgive me for not knowing.
I think so.
Forgive me. Have your audience can gently correct me in the comments. So a king in India, in Mysore, asked T. Krishnamacharya to come up with kind of like physical fitness education.
Mhm.
And Krishnamacharya said yes. He got his own sort of like ashram set up, but in that ashram, he had access to training manuals for I know I mentioned it earlier, gymnastics, wrestling, and um, I can't, there's a third one that I can't remember off the top of my head, but you get the idea. It was other
Mhm.
physical culture type things. This wasn't an ancient script or a carving in a rock. This was a manual that was probably brought over from Sweden or Europe. He saw all those exercises and integrated them into yoga.
Mhm.
So now yoga is not just breathing, sitting, and meditating. It's actually trying to strengthen your body and make it more healthy. Does that make
Right.
sense?
That does make sense. And it's a little bit contradictory to what you said before when, we are in the vomiting and the cleansing and the what did you say? Making the body useless? To
Originally,
we're
yeah,
right, we're strengthening the body now and
correct.
making it better and, like you said, harder to kill. It's like, wait a second. That's not the same thing anymore. That's the extreme opposite, actually.
Correct. Correct.
Mhm.
And if you read if you read the work of Mark Singleton, let me refer to my notes, please. Mark Singleton wrote a book called Yoga Body. I think it's called
Mhm.
Yoga Body. And also James Mallinson. These guys are, I mean, they're like way smarter than me, and they did all the work. And they
Mhm.
talk about where the physical side of yoga comes from.
Mhm.
And they have citations and they can trace it back. Like, for example, sun salutations are a big part of yoga culture.
Mhm. Yep.
There are many varieties of sun salutations, but what you often hear is 3,000 years ago, someone turned, faced the sun, brought their hands up, folded in half, and stepped back, and they did the sun salutations. I believe it's Mark Singleton who traced it back to strength culture of Europe with an exercise that's very similar to a burpee, if your audience knows what a burpee is.
Yeah.
Now, a burpee, I'll do my best to describe it. A burpee is when you more or less stand at attention, bend your knees, put your hands on the floor, and you jump back to a high push up position, lower yourself down, push yourself back up, jump your feet to your hands, and then stand up again. You're supposed to do it kind of quickly.
Mhm.
But now, if you imagine slowing that down, so if you imagine standing at attention, then you inhale, bring your arms up overhead.
Mhm.
Exhale, bend your knees and bring your hands to the floor. Inhale, pause. Exhale, step or jump back to a plank. Lower yourself down. Inhale back up and then exhale. You get it, right? Suddenly
Mhm.
that's a sun salutation. So it's not something from 3,000 years ago that was carved in on a rock. It came from a pamphlet from Europe from somewhere around 1900s. And it just got integrated into the culture, right? So that that's the kind of stuff for me that was important to know.
Mhm.
Like, hmm, this really isn't 5,000 years old. This really isn't some sort of ancient secret scroll. This is two cultures kind of merging, and then the the output of that merger is yoga as we know
Mhm.
it today, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And is this all because this king said, "Hey, come over here into my palace. I need to get fit, do something." Right? Essentially.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
That may have sped it along.
Mm. Do you think there is a we have talked about this before in the functional yoga episode about does it look sexy enough and Instagram and all of that. Do you think that this whole component of you know, how yoga is depicted, this ancient, the whatever. Um, that's a seller. That's what makes people fascinated with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, 100%. Well, it's just really good marketing,
Mm,
and it just even marketing even for the folks in India. I mean, because imagine you live in India and your livelihood depends on getting people to come to your ashram. How are you going to get people to come to your ashram? You have the answer. You're the one with the secret scroll, or you're the one who was a direct link to the guy who had the secret scroll, who was a direct link to the king. And it's just that sort of tribal mentality that just draws people in. And now they feel like they're a part of something bigger,
mhm.
right? So if you go to India and you say, oh, yeah, well, my yoga is the same as that guy's yoga over there, you're not going to have too many
Yeah,
customers, right? So
yeah.
you have to do this whole thing to make yourself stand out. It's
Mhm.
excellent marketing.
Yeah.
We all know, maybe we all don't know, but like Bikram,
Oof.
yeah, well, but I mean, he claimed that he had this magic formula for
Mhm.
bringing the body, ridding the body of disease and making it indestructible. And according to a documentary on Netflix, they interviewed someone in India and they said, no, Bikram just stole my teacher's uh, protocol. He had a
Yeah,
pamphlet. He said, this is my teacher's lessons. And he showed the pamphlet and it was all the Bikram stuff in there.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I watched that documentary and the one about Kundalini yoga because you recommended it. And the thing is, I'm not saying that none of these people obviously have, I don't want to say evil, but not the best intentions, and they have a different goal, and the goal is, follow the money trail, but they're still geniuses. They make gold out of complete baloney, and I thought, I said to my husband, "What if these people that are so smart that can do this would just put their strength and intelligence into something good? That would be fantastic." Um, but then you have people. That's why I'm always saying I'm not taking away of anything because there is people that swear by Kundalini yoga. They say this changed my life. This is making everything better. There's people that swear Bikram changed their life and they needed to get yelled at and they needed to do
Mm-hmm.
these weird bends and then their knee pain went away, whatever. It, but I would love to see studies done about the percentage of people who get hurt versus people who walk out and say, "Oh yeah, this was the best thing of my life." Um, and speaking to that, I mean, you just told us when you practiced this religiously and you were good at it and you now became, I want to say like the golden child, every time something um, needed to be demonstrated. Oh, Brian, come here. You can do this great, right? So you're the front guy, but actually you're the one who is suffering in multiple joints on your body and then discovering that. I do want to come back to you said having this knowledge that this stuff actually didn't come from a 5,000-year-old scroll was important to you. What changed with that knowledge?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, what what changed, I suppose, was I had a stronger sense of freedom. Like I understood instantly none of this stuff matters. And so when you're doing ashtanga yoga specifically, and full disclosure, the rules may have changed. I don't know. But it used to be um, if you practiced a certain way, you would get benefit.
Mhm.
They say, okay, you have to do it this way. You have to do 10 sun salutations. You have to do the standing sequence. You have to do primary series. And then you have to do the closing sequence. You have to. And you have to do it on these days, but you can't do it on these days. Like you couldn't do it on a new moon or something. And if you were a woman, you couldn't do it while you were menstruating. Like they were just these rules. And there were other
Mhm.
rules. Maybe someone had just come back from India and they said, guys, they're not doing it this way in India anymore. Now they're doing it this way. So if you're doing it the old way, you're not getting any benefit. You don't benefit anymore. You have to do it this way. Oh, and also, if you're not learning from a certified Patabi Joy's teacher who's been blessed by Patabi Joy, you're not getting benefit either.
Mhm.
So there's all this like kind of weird stuff like, so I've spent all this time, days and hours, money, energy, and time building this practice, but I'm not benefiting. So you just start to, I was free after that because I realized it was
Yeah.
just all arbitrary. I could do one sun salutation if I wanted to because it didn't
Mhm.
matter. I could do it in a cold room. I could do it in a hot room. I could do it outside. Like it didn't matter because it was really just about the physical side of it all that mattered. Are you showing up? Are you doing your practice? Are you benefiting from your practice?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense, and it's I mean, it's I'm trying to digest all of this because it's so crazy.
Hmm.
It's so out there that, I'm not taking myself out of this too because sometimes I have belief things because someone told me and I thought they were the expert,
Hmm.
right? Um, and I do believe that what you're saying about, a teacher has to be from this and blessed and blah, 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 blah. I think it's still like this in the yoga realm that if someone introduces themselves as a teacher and says, I actually learned in India, it gets this whole, ooh, right? It's more, it's flashy.
Hmm.
They have to be better because they learned from the source kind of thing.
Correct.
And that we have that this stuff, even though we have the internet, we have all these tools,
Right.
it's holding on just because it has been taught like this and promoted like this for, I don't know, like you said, since the 60s, 70s. Scary.
Well, I don't know if it's scary. It's interest to me. It's interesting,
Yeah.
and you said it earlier and we've talked about it before. I'm not here to knock anyone or judge anyone. Like if those rules help to keep you centered and they help to keep you grounded and they help to keep you disciplined and it's helping you. See, the key word in my brain is help. If it's
Mhm.
helping you and it's making you healthier, happier, and helpful, excellent. Please continue doing it. Enjoy it. Go to the ashram, touch your teacher's feet, put the malas around the portraits and burn the incense, do all that stuff. It's fine. Just, keep it to yourself. Don't try to convince me or anyone else. Like, that's the only way it can be done.
Mhm. Mhm.
Share your stories, and that's fine. If people resonate with it, that's fine. But for me, I prefer getting closer and closer to the truth. Now, you mentioned earlier Kundalini yoga. Kundalini, in case your audience doesn't know, it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's a little more
Yeah.
esoteric than the yoga you might get at a YMCA. And it's based on breathing techniques. So you do a series of hyperventilating breathing techniques, and it's supposed to shift your consciousness and all that stuff. And people wear turbans and things like that, all of which is fine. These are just facts, not feelings. It is supposed to be based on, you guessed it, a secret scroll that was somehow unearthed by a guy named Yogi Bhajan, who brought it to America and wanted to teach a select few people how to get high without being on drugs. That was his first tagline. Let's get high, but we won't use drugs. And this was like at
Mhm.
the peak of drug culture in the 60s and 70s.
Mhm.
You know this because you saw the documentary recently. And so he's teaching these secret techniques. And lo and behold, there's no ancient scroll. There's no evidence of an ancient scroll. In fact, I wish I could remember the fella's name. If I remember it, I'll share it with you. But he had his own YouTube channel, and he was this was even before the net or the HBO documentary, and he was talking about how Yogi Bhajan just made stuff up.
Mhm.
Like he would just make stuff up and then teach it, and then people would do it, and it's just all predicated on a lie. So it's fine if it's helping you, but I would rather hear, yeah, some guy from India came to America, made up all this stuff, but it seems to help.
Mhm.
I can deal with that. And then it helps me to decide versus trying to get sucked into, you know, I I try not to use the word, but this sort of cult-like mentality where
Yeah.
we have to go to this ashram. We have to wear a turban. We have to do it this way. We have to because it's in this ancient script. And if we don't do it this way, no benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's a seller. Again,
Yeah.
it's marketing because it brings this magical, whimsical, supernatural component to it, which then, a lot of people like. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm one of them, but not in that sense. And watching this documentary, I mean, not only did he lie, he was a very evil person. He was, and then I think wasn't he the guy who always ate junk food too and actually never practiced what he taught? Like, or
Yeah.
I don't even think he taught it. He just wrote it down and had other people teach it for him because he was just sitting all day on his little thing and, made
Yeah.
himself the
Supposedly his
guru.
favorite meal was
So,
leftover Taco Bell crushed up
mhm.
into a bowl, and he ate that. And another sort of curious thing about like yoga and all the claims and all that stuff like that. So we know Yogi Bhajan, the the Kundalini guy, according to the documentary on HBO, like he just died and he was in so much pain that he was so doped up on pain meds. I don't remember if it was brought on by type 2 diabetes. Do you remember what it was?
He had yes, he definitely had diabetes and heart issues.
Okay.
I mean,
So
everything in the book you can get from eating junk,
and
essentially.
coming from the guy who says if you breathe a certain way, it cleanses your body and you'll never get sick. But he
Mhm.
winds up dying of complications of type 2 diabetes because he's
Yeah.
eating Taco Bell all day. And then the other, like Sri K. Patabi Joy's, although he lived well into his 90s, he hadn't practiced yoga probably in 60 years, maybe more. He stopped doing yoga when one of his sons died. One of his sons may or may not have committed suicide. And supposedly like an Indian tradition thing is like you give something up, I guess, to atone for someone dying.
Mhm.
So he gave up his practice, supposedly, but he could barely walk. He was overweight and he could barely walk. And when I think about stuff like that, like I think about my mentors, Steve Maxwell is a mentor of mine. He is, my gosh, if I'm 57, whew, Steve Maxwell might be 77. He might be in his 70s, but he still does Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He can still do pull-ups. He still does Hindu squats. So that was an epiphany for me as well when I was at that sort of crossroads of now what am I going to do? Right.
Uh,
I just found out that what I've been spending all my time doing is not 5,000 years old. There is no ancient scroll. The people that I watch practicing it are getting busted up, wrist surgery, shoulder surgery. I'm falling to pieces. Now what?
yeah.
So I started looking as far outside the yoga realm as humanly possible. And I came across guys like Mark Rifkind, Steve Maxwell. I'm sure another name, even Daniel John. Like these are guys who are older, but they're still doing it. They're still pushing weight over their heads. They're throwing kettlebells around. They're training hard because they can move and stuff. Whereas a lot of yoga people, their their performance would dwindle.
Uh-huh.
Right? They're not getting better and better and better and better. They're getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse because you can't have that kind of practice. You just can't go full blast all the time and in heat and 3
Yeah.
hours a day, 6 days a week. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
Uh, Sorry, I get a little bit sidetracked. So with all that and with all the claims, Sharath Rangaswamy sadly passed away. I think he had a heart attack when he was out on a hike. He was hiking in the mountains. Sharath Ramaswamy was the heir to the Ashtanga empire, but
Mhm.
somehow he, even with his advanced level of practice and practicing every day and demonstrating across the world, somehow he winds up s- sadly passing away at a relatively young age when this yoga stuff is supposed to make you invincible, right?
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of that stuff because you had asked earlier, like, what are the percentages of people getting injured and people who don't get injured and stuff like that? It's hard to measure because um, I believe the statistics are predicated on emergency room type
Mhm.
calls.
Hmm.
So if someone breaks their arm doing yoga, and if they don't go to the emergency room, obviously we don't know about it,
Right.
right? Like if someone sprains their leg or torques their knee, we just may not know because of people healing themselves at home, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But the statistics are about the same for any kind of, I guess, physical activity. You don't see like a huge uptick in yoga compared to even weightlifting and stuff like that. It's all about the same.
Right.
Um, but the difference is the messaging that yoga is supposed to be safer than, but it may not be. It may not be.
Mhm. I agree. It's I mean, depending on what level you're also looking at, and I know we've talked about this before where you go into a beginner's class and it's excuse me, it is not a beginner's class. It's not beginners friendly. It's way too advanced for someone who is if I say beginner, I have to pretend that everybody in this class has never seen yoga before in their
Right.
entire life,
Right.
right? Um, and then, yeah, if it's too advanced, this is very easy to hurt yourself, very easy. I mean, it happened to me, and I'm sure I have friends that it happened to, and it might be a little tweak, it might be a big tweak, but even if it's a little tweak, it shouldn't happen at all. It should be safe. It should be a safe practice. And I do remember the book that I was mentioning in the beginning when I first opened those, and these 2 people that wrote it are, obviously pictured in there, and I thought, "They don't look healthy." I mean, sunken in eyes,
Oh, yeah.
the whole shadows under their eyes, and they're very not there's a difference between someone who's very thin and someone who looks very frail,
Right.
and they both looked very much undernourished. Let's just say it that way. And I thought, you know, weird. This is supposed to be the holy grail of exercise and living that way and all the things. And yeah, well, then I started reading about exactly what you said about the whole cleansing out and the e enemas, and I thought, "Oh, well, but that's probably why," you know? It is just that now can be dangerous, right, to promote this because essentially, if I would have done what this book said to do, I I would have been malnourished as well.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
again, I'm a health coach. I'm not saying that a good cleanse is a wonderful thing, but you need to do it right. That was it was an extreme, and
Mhm.
every time we talk about extremes, it's dangerous. They're always dangerous.
Correct. Yep, and that's kind of what was happening to me is I was just tilting more and more and more towards extreme
Mm,
because as you get deeper and deeper into the practice of ashtanga yoga, you get into more and more quote advanced poses end quote. So maybe if you can find some uh, license-free images of advanced ashtanga yoga poses, I mean, it's like 2 feet behind your head, bouncing on two hands, kinds of stuff, rotations and binding. And it's just all completely unnecessary unless your livelihood is a contortionist or something in that
yeah.
realm. You don't need that much flexibility in your life. You absolutely don't. You need mobility and stability. But we talked about that last time.
Mhm. Well, yeah, that's flexibility and being bendy is a huge seller.
Hmm.
It's people get sold that that's good. That's a sign of health, and that's a sign of a certain fitness level that you're bendy. I don't know why. I don't know
Yeah,
where this is coming from.
I don't
Maybe
either.
I I don't know. Maybe it's because people watch gymnastics or certain dance things or figure skating or whatnot and think, "Oh, look, that's amazing that she can do that." That's advanced.
But the,
So,
the funny thing about that, what is the average lifespan of a figure skater, a high level figure skater, or a high level gymnast, or a high level dancer? What's the lifespan? Do you know?
I have no idea, but
They
I'm sure you're gonna
barely
tell
make
me a
it. Yeah,
shocking number.
well, they barely make it out of their 20s.
Mm,
So they may or may not look good. I don't know what that means. But they may look super bendy and it's like, "Oh my god, I wish I could move like that." They only move that way to a certain point in their career, and then
mhm,
it stops. They don't hold on to that extreme end range stuff forever. It goes away fast.
yeah,
So my goal has always been to be relatively mobile, relatively pain-free, and relatively strong. I'm not trying to put my foot behind my head anymore. I got to that level, and I'll tell you, it is not worth it. The time and energy you spend trying to force yourself into these positions, there's nothing. There's no benefit. You're not any happier. You're not any closer to equanimity. If anything, you just wind up chasing the the next shiny object. Okay, now I got
mhm,
both feet behind my head. Now what? Can I, can I get both feet behind my head and between my shoulder blades? Now what? Maybe I can just tear my legs off my body. Yeah, maybe that's
right,
next.
mhm, and how does this benefit in your everyday life?
Yeah, not at
Mm,
all. 0.
mhm, yeah. It's fascinating because at the end of the day, everything we just talked about is that someone is making up stuff to have their own gain. And like what you said, if someone just said like, "Hey, I have no idea where this came from, but I found some information here and there and I put it together and I think this is great. We should do that." I mean, I don't know. Pilates doesn't claim that they have come from some ancient scrolls or weightlifting or whatever, I mean, obviously the Greeks
I don't know
did it
that
back in the
Pilates
day.
now see, this is something that your viewers can comment on. I
Mhm.
don't know that Pilates ever gave credit to the source of his material, which was essentially basic gymnastics and tumbling. He called it controlology, if I'm pronouncing it correctly,
Mhm.
controlology. But I don't think the limited exposure I've had to Joseph Pilates and his method, I don't recall him ever saying, "Oh, I got this from a gymnastics pamphlet when I was rehabilitating this, that, and the other." The way I understood it is he just said, "Hey, this thing called controlology, and these are the however many they have like 32, I think, basic positions. But those positions, if you're familiar with gymnastics, they have a position that's called the hollow. They have a
Mhm.
position that's called the arch, and they have different like fundamental tumbling sorts of positions. And that's what the original mat Pilates stuff was, but they didn't call it a hollow position. They called it an imprint. They didn't call it tumbling. They called it a seal or something like that. So he had his own intellectual property, and then he could sell it. This isn't
Mm.
gymnastics. This is controlology, if I'm
Right.
pronouncing it correctly. And
Mhm.
full disclosure, I'm happy to be corrected. Just please be nice about it. This is just what I know, my limited exposure to Pilates. This is what I know. Um, so he may not have said 5,000-year-old text,
Mhm.
but I don't know that he said, yeah, a pamphlet that I learned from a circus performer or something like that,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It does. It does. I just hope that, people have an open mind. Even after this again, if you do something that this brings you great joy and it feels good before you go, while you do it, and when you go back home, great, fabulous, keep at it. But check in with yourself every once in a while. Does this do I still like to do that? Does that still feel good? How's my body doing? Is this still the right thing? Because it's not it shouldn't be an indoctrination to where you get how do I say that? Kinda like caught up in the thing that you have to think this is the right thing because it was the right thing 5 years ago.
Yeah. See, that's a good point, and I'm always I don't know if always is the right word, but, I'm always, perplexed when I'll be chatting with someone and they'll say, "Yeah, my shoulder my shoulder's killing me." And I'll say, "Well, what are you doing for your shoulder?" And they say, "Oh, I go do hot yoga. It really helps." And I say, "Well, clearly it's not helping."
Mhm.
And they look at me like I just slapped their mom across their face or something. They're like, "What? What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if it was
Yeah.
helping, you wouldn't have the shoulder issue anymore, right?
Mhm.
You've got the shoulder issue. You go do something. It helps you. You no longer have the shoulder issue, correct?" And they can't wrap their head around it. They're like, "Wait, what? No. What? Huh?"
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm not passing judgment, by the way. I mean, this is just facts, not feelings. This is what I bump into a lot when I try to explain to people about my method where we don't stretch. And most of my clients, they feel better after, right? The stuff, whatever it was that's bugging them, slows down, stops, or goes away.
Mhm.
And then they keep coming for maintenance or to improve.
Yep.
They don't keep coming because their shoulder keeps bugging them and they keep stretching it and it feels better for that session, and then it hurts again tomorrow. Then they come back and stretch it again. It feels better for that session. It hurts again tomorrow. Like they get caught in that loop. So they think that it's helping because they have fewer symptoms after the stretch or whatever.
Mhm.
But then they wake up the next morning and the symptoms are back.
Mhm.
That's evidence that what you're doing isn't helping.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah.
And that's to your point, that was that epiphany for me is, huh, what I'm doing is supposed to be helping, but it's making it worse. Something ain't right.
Mhm.
And that was the moment where I had to step back, literally like step back and shut down yoga until I could wrap my mind around exactly what was happening and why.
Mhm.
And part of that process was understanding the truth. There was no magic. There was no 5,000-year-old scroll. It was just exercise that was put into the realm of yoga. It caught on, and that's it. It's not magic.
Mhm.
It's calisthenics in a hot room where you say Om before class and you say
Right.
Om after class, and that's it.
Yeah. And it's I think it's to what you said, it's also very dangerous because of how yoga is depicted, even from professionals, even from physical therapists, even from all around. And I have been guilty myself that too, because when you want to tell someone, do some gentle exercises, maybe some yoga or some walking or swimming. Those are the three ones that I can think about right from the get go. If someone would tell someone to do a gentle exercise, yoga is always there. Yoga is a number one gentle exercise that gets recommended,
Yeah.
but it's also the one that is more than swimming and walking. um, can cause injuries very quickly.
Well, it depends, right? It depends on the type.
Yes.
You and I've talked
Mhm.
about this before. It's it's unfortunate that yoga is just an umbrella term. And so a well-meaning physician, a well-meaning massage therapist, they say, yoga can help you with your lower back.
Mhm.
And so now that person heard it from an authoritative source and they go, okay, yoga will help my back.
Yep.
And then they go to a beginner's class in a
Mhm.
97-degree Fahrenheit room. And the first thing they do is stand at attention, inhale, bring their arms up overhead, exhale, fold in half, and touch their toes. Now, this might be someone who hasn't touched their toes in 27 years. But
Mm.
then the well meaning yoga instructor encourages them and starts pushing on them. So you can do it here. Push, push, push. And the hot room creates that false sense of flexibility because their muscles are becoming more malleable.
Yep.
And they may get to their toes and they may survive that first yoga class, but there's a good chance they're going to be super sore for like a week after, and it might exacerbate their symptoms and makes their symptoms worse because
Mhm.
they're stretching and destabilizing the joints. But we'll save that for another
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the goal is for your listeners, if they've heard such a thing as, well, my doctor recommended yoga, try to do your homework first. Even ask, like, if you have a yoga studio nearby, or if you're looking at YouTube content, whatever it is, like, find out first and look and try to make the best judgment you can. Like, is this going to be good for my back? The thing
Mhm.
with YouTube that's good is you can drag the player head. You can drag and watch the video go by, and you can see, well, all right, that looks doable. Well, then you try, maybe,
Mm.
right? But if you can get someone on the phone or something along those lines. Try to have that conversation to see if that form of yoga is suitable for them. That's why I always
Yeah.
try to get people on the phone before
Yep.
they join our VIP group.
Yep.
I always try to speak to someone first because I want to make sure what is it that triggers your symptoms? What do you need to
Mhm.
avoid? What are the things you can and cannot do? And then if it's the right fit, we move forward.
Yeah.
But if not,
Assessment.
yeah,
Yes.
correct,
Mhm.
correct,
Mhm.
yeah.
So, cleansing your body with vomiting and gauze and all the things and that's all really thousands of years old and has been there in all the things. However, the physical aspect of it, the physical training aspect of it came a lot later and is actually not anything new. Um,
There's a
I mean
discernible you can see, like, if you look at the yoga texts, you can see all the way up until I think the first ancient yoga text that actually had postures in it was called the Hatha Yoga Pratapika. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And it was just a few poses. And it was mostly
mhm,
seated or lying down because you're trying to transcend the physical body.
mhm,
I don't think it was until T. Krishnamacharya published his book that all of a sudden now there's a lot of standing poses. It went from sitting and lying down, mm, maybe 2 dozen poses, plus or minus,
mhm.
to now all of a sudden now there's like 57 poses.
Yeah, okay.
It's clear as day. And none
Right.
of the ancient texts, like sometimes people will refer to Patanjali's sutras and whatnot. Patanjali makes no mention of triangle pose or warrior two. He or she, they make no mention of that. They just say asana, uh, a, s- a seat in which you can comfortably contemplate or something like that. Just a way to sit and contemplate. That's
Mhm.
it under the realm of postures, asana. There's no specific mention of turning your room to 97 degrees and doing a flow. That's not in the
Mhm.
ancient text. That's the stuff from 20th and 21st century.
Incredible. I mean, I'm glad you do what you do and you teach what you teach, but, um and I'm also glad that I don't have to be a vegan and I don't have to do an enema before I do yoga. So, yay!
Yeah, please don't.
All right. I will, as always, link everything from you in the show notes because, yes, and this is my personal opinion, and that's why I can say that for me, your functional yoga instruction is the best yoga instruction out there. It is safe, it creates stability and mobility. And it's something that you can do when you're 10, and it's something you can do when you're 99. It doesn't matter. So, um, highly recommend. I'm still trying to get the rest of the family on board too. So,
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I wish in the best way possible, in the most positive best way possible, I wish we had that sort of cult-like vibe where everyone would just come and find us because it was like you were saying earlier, you know, w- we're we really want to help. Like we're here to help people. The problem is that it's not like sexy. You
mhm,
know, you're not going to see our clients in a skimpy bathing suit on the beach stretching for Instagram. You're
right.
going to see a normal person holding a position using their muscles and breathing for 5 or so breath cycles. It's not very exciting to watch, but that's what it takes to get those benefits. If you want your hips to stop aching and you want your low back to stop aching, you've got to work on stability and you've got to work on it in a safe step by step way. Now, if we could, maybe I should just say that functional yoga instruction came from a 5,000-year-old scroll I found when I was digging up my backyard.
Right.
My beautiful wife and I were putting up a fence in Florida,
There
and we found this scroll.
there it was. There it was. Wonder how that got here.
Mm. Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you. And as always, thank you for having me on. And I'm happy to share this stuff with your audience and with you. And happy to come back anytime.
Yeah. And if this episode rattled your brain, your beliefs, your deepest soul level, whatever, just again, take a deep breath, let that sink in a little bit, and don't shy to comment on it. Just, like Brian said, be nice. And I see y'all again next week. Like, subscribe, do all the things you need to do, share, save, copy the link. I mean, there is 1,000 things you can do. And yeah, we're going to be here, and glad you tuned in today. All right. Bye, y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, a review, and share it with somebody you think needs this. Have a fabulous day. See you next time.